Hello and welcome to erpwebtutor.com. In this lesson, we are going to learn how to use components in salary. Now, the salary itself can be broken down into multiple components like merit, promotion, cost of living, market adjustment. So these are the different components by which you can break your salary, the total value. So let's see how we can use those components when we design the salary. Now, in order to do that, you need to get into your setup and maintenance area by getting into your navigator and then setup and maintenance. Now, under my all task, I'm going to look for the task called manage salary basis, and I'm going to click on go to task. And then I'm going to search for the two salaries that we have defined, and I'm going to show you how the components are being used. So I'm going to do a wild search, which is giving me the different salary bases that has been configured. So I'm going to pick the three, the EWT annual salary, EWT salary with components, and the last one, EWT salary with component choice. So let's take a look at the first one and see how it has been configured. The only prerequisite that you need to have while you define your salary basis is the payroll element. So you can see here that this payroll element is a required field when you define your salary basis. So that has to be pre-configured when you come to the salary basis screen. Now, on the bottom section of the screen, you see something called configure salary component usage. So this is where you define whether to use components or not. So you have three choices: do not use components, display selected components, and user selects components to use. So you can see here, this particular salary basis has been defined to not use components. So we will see while we assign the salary basis, we're going to assign all the three salary bases that we have defined, whether not to use components or to use selected components, or the user has the option to choose the components. So this one with no components, I'm going to cancel. And then let's see the one that has been defined with components. So you can see here that this is the one, the choice is display selected components. Once you make this choice, you will see all the defined components that exists. And then you select which are the different components that you want the users to use. This is purely requirement driven. If the client wants specific components to be enabled and not use and not give the option for the HR to add components or select components, then you only define or you enable the ones that they will use. So that is the salary basis with components. The next one, which is with component choice, and you can see here the same configuration on the top. In the bottom section, we have selected user selects components to use. So when we select this option, we do not check any checkbox because that option does not apply. So now I'm going to go and pick an employee. To do that, I can go back to my navigator and person management. And I'm going to look for my test employee just to see. So I'm going to use this employee, test one. Just click on the employee's name. On the employee's person management screen, from here, we need to go to the compensation area and click on manage salary. And as you can see, this person does not have any salary basis assigned. So we will try all the three different salary bases that we have defined and see how the behavior changes. So we'll just click on add. So we need to first put the start date. So you can see here, the system tells you what is the the earliest date that you can put, 10/15/15, and let's say we're going to choose the hire as the action and then say OK. And once I have selected the date, the bottom section is where I'm going to enter the salary basis. Okay, so I'm going to choose the salary basis. First, I'm going to assign the salary without the components. So when I select this EW2 annual salary, you can see this warning saying that the amounts were computed based on the worker's salary basis. You can ignore that. And what you will see is you have something called the salary amount. And right now, this is an editable field and you need to enter the salary. Okay, so let's say I'm going to enter a salary and I'm going to press tab, and it does not allow me to enter any other values. Okay, now we can go ahead, continue, and submit the process. Now, instead of doing that, I'm going to select the other salary basis now with the one has the components. Okay, so we can again search for the salary basis, and this time I'm going to select the EWT annual salary with components. So once I do that, I'm going to get the same warning, which I'm going to ignore. And now if I scroll down, I will see the different components that I have enabled. And you can see here the plus icon is disabled, which means that I will not be able to add any more components. I have to use the one that has been configured. Now I can say that, let's say this person is a new hire and this person is going to get a salary, which is, let's say, the market value for the salary. And I'm going to enter the same 80,000. And once I enter this and tab out, you can see the annual salary gets calculated. And now this is a read-only field. Okay. If I want to give him an additional cost of living of $5,000, I will enter the $5,000 in here, just tab out. So you can see here the new annual salary gets recalculated, and in a similar way I can continue to add values for all the different components, and then my annual salary will get recalculated. Okay, now instead of saving, let me cancel out of this, and I'm going to add the third one and show you how the components will behave. I'm going to go back to manage salary, and then I'm going to add the salary basis again. I'm going to use the 10/15/15 as the date, and the hire as the action. And then now for the salary basis, I'm going to select the annual salary with component choice. So once I select that, let's ignore the warning for now. Same thing, you can see it gives me a choice whether I want to use components or not. So the beauty of having the salary basis defined with components and not specifying any list of components is that if you want, you can use components. So as you can see here, the bottom section is now enabled, and also my plus icon is enabled. I can select which components I want to use just by clicking the add. So once I click on add, I can select the component from the drop down, and I can select merit and say this is 80,000. This list of components, we will see how to add more components if you want. So this is basically how you can add the components from the list. Okay. If I do not want to use components and I just want to enter the salary amount, I will just uncheck this use salary component, And now you can see that I can enter the salary, the annual salary, and the salary amount field. So this pretty much serves the purpose of using components or not, and it's the most flexible option. Okay. Now, one thing in mind, just that you have to remember, that the components are not really used for anything else apart from distributing the total value. When the value or the data that goes into payroll, it always sends the sum, which is this 80,000 that you're seeing here. Of course, it's going to break it down into the pay periods and send the appropriate value, but it does not send the components. So the components are purely for notification or reporting purpose. Okay, so that is something that you might consider. So this is basically how you use components on the salary basis screen. And the next thing that we will see is how to add additional components to that list. So let me cancel out of here. So I'm going to cancel out of the person management area, and I'm going to go back to my setup and maintenance. So let's go to the navigator, setup and maintenance, and let's go back to all tasks. And I'm going to look for manage common lookups. So this is actually stored in lookups. So that's the reason why we need to go to the lookups, and we're going to find the appropriate lookup that stores the value. Simply click on go to task, and then look for the lookup type. It's called CMP underscore salary underscore components, and then search for it. And you can see here, once you do that, it will show you all the values. This is you can see here, the user is the customization level, which means that you can delete, add, edit all the values that exists. These are some of the seeded values that comes with the application. If you do not want to use a particular component, you can disable by simply unchecking this checkbox. If you want to add, you can add a new value. We always recommend that instead of deleting the seeded value, you always disable. That's always a better practice. And if you want to add a new value, you can always click on add and add the new value. So let's say this is test component, and you can also change the display sequence, and let's say this is 10. And we can paste the same end date, and let's call it test component. Okay. You can use tags to display certain components for certain countries as well. Just simply use plus and the country code, which is, let's say for US, it's going to be plus US. So that value will only appear for plus US. So this one, if I want this to be for US only, I'm going to just say plus US. If you want this value for multiple countries, you can just say plus US, comma, plus UK or GB, whichever is the 2-digit code. And that way, this will appear for only these countries, okay? If you only want to exclude this component from a particular country, let's say I don't want this to appear for the US, but for every other country, I will just say minus US. And then that way, this value will be available for all other countries other than the US, okay? I'm not going to save it. This is basically how you add new components to the salary component list of values. So that's all. Hopefully that was useful. You learned how to create different kinds of salary bases, and then how the different kinds behave when it comes to the front end entering the salary. And also, if you want to add, edit, or remove certain values from that list of components, you can do it here as well. So that's all for now. Thanks for watching.